Hello and welcome to the Open Social Media Initiative. I'm thrilled to host an interview with Nichole Kelly, who is an authority in measuring social media outcome and relating them to business outcome in a way that stakeholders and the C-suite understand it. Now, before I go on and introducing Nichole and go with the rest of the program, just wanted to remind you that we do use the hashtag #OpenSM. So if you'd like to update your Twitter or G+ followers with respect to ideas that you hear on this show, you can use that #OpenSM hashtag. Also, I wanted to remind you that our show now in 2013 has 3 segments. So we have the interview, then we talk about what's new in social media, and then we also have a segment about tools of efficiency. So you're welcome to stay with us, and we have a guest here. And they have, what is your name? Michael. Michael is here. Okay, nice to have you with us, Michael.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi. Okay, so I'm going to switch the screen to Nichole. Nichole, it's a pleasure to have you here, and like I said before, I've admired you. I have been admiring your work and your presentations for a long time, so it's an absolute pleasure for me to speak with you directly.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, who is Nichole? I'm sure if you have been paying attention to the social media industry, you have heard of her, but in case you haven't, Nichole Kelly is the CEO of Social Media Explorer / SME Digital. Her team helps companies figure out where social media fits and then helps execute the recommended strategy across the right mix of social media channels. Her firm uses a scalable content approach and measure the results of your bottom line. Nichole is also an instructor at Johns Hopkins University, where she teaches social media strategy and measurement. Michael, if you could mute yourself, because when you type, we can hear the typing. Oh. Thank you. Anyway, again, it's a pleasure to have you here. I have been reading your book, and like I said, I haven't finished reading it, but it is fantastic. And really, I believe that after reading your book, social media professionals shouldn't have any more excuse with respect to not using measurement, or business owners, because you give them a really nice step-by-step guide, as the book says, and also there is hands-on practice at the end of chapters. So it's not only great for us to implement it, it's also great for teaching it at college level like you're doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I started my career in corporate marketing, and so I did all different types of marketing, and kind of started to look at social media back in 2009 is when it started to really, companies started to take a look at it, and I said, hey, this is something that's really interesting. And I remember back then everyone was saying, oh, you can't measure it. It's, we're going to gather around a fire and kumbaya, we're going to be friends, and it's going to be awesome. And I was like, well, companies aren't going to use it if that's the case. So, it's happening online. Why is there this concern about being able to measure it? I mean, can't we measure everything online? It's scary what we can measure online. And I decided I was going to fix it and figure out a way that we could start to talk about social media and measuring social media in a way that business executives could understand. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, you are not going to get budget or funding if you can't translate social media into some kind of an impact on real business. And that doesn't correlate to likes and follows. It correlates to sales volume, revenue, and cost.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, in addition to being somebody who works in a corporation that has to justify the cost, we have to, as some people that are solopreneurs, you have to justify it for yourself, because you have to do budgeting of your work. So it's important to do it. And I'm glad that you wrote this book so you can teach us how to do it. It's important. What I really like that you did in the beginning was that basically you told people like it is, which I love. And you told them, listen, this is not easy work. So don't expect for somebody to give you a whole bunch of formulas to plug in and expect to get a number pop out of it from the other end. And when you read the book, you really get that sense of, yes, this is really hard work, isn't it?
It is. And I say, if you need the formula for ROI, then we've got bigger problems than whether or not you're going to be able to measure social media, right? Because that's a simple formula. It is. It's not as, so I look at it this way. It's not that hard to put the mechanisms in place to be able to get the tracking you need to get real numbers, right? What's hard is being able to look at those numbers and being able to interpret them in a way that helps you make better business decisions. That requires you to stop and say, at the end of the day, with everything that I'm doing here, what am I actually trying to accomplish? How is this going to impact business in a way that's meaningful? And then once I figure that out, then maybe I need to relook at the strategy that I developed or these tools or tactics that I'm using, because maybe they're not in alignment. When you understand what the business is trying to accomplish and what you're doing on your Facebook page, for example, those things may not be in alignment. And if they're not, then what do we need to do to be able to adjust them?
Yeah, so it's important. That point is very important, that you need to slow down and take a look at what you're doing. How often do you suggest people to sit down, sit back? Is on a weekly, daily, or does it depend?
I mean, I think it depends on the size of the organization. I mean, this works whether you're a solopreneur or it works if you're a big business, right? So in a big business, there's a lot of numbers moving. And anytime there's a lot of numbers moving, I recommend you probably look at it more frequently. The question is who's looking at it? There are the people who are actually doing the work, right? If you're a solopreneur and you're out there on LinkedIn and you're doing a bunch of stuff out there for relationship building, there's one person. But in businesses, sometimes it's a community manager, a social media manager that's out there and they're posting all the content. That person honestly should be looking at the numbers every day, right? Because we're trying to figure out, did that status update impact what I'm doing? Did it increase the reach? Did people engage with it? They should really be frontline looking at those numbers every day because they need to make adjustments every day. Once you start to get higher levels in the organization, then we start to say, okay, well, maybe it's something that we should be looking at weekly. In some companies, monthly is enough depending on the size of the organization. The big thing is to understand and separate out what you're looking at from a community management perspective versus a strategic perspective. At the strategic level, we're looking at, did this impact my business? At the community manager level, we're looking at, is the audience responding to this or not? And you make those adjustments and optimize along the way so that you can have a higher return. And you mentioned earlier about, a solopreneur. One of the things I hear a lot is when I'm talking to solopreneurs is, gosh, I'm just so busy. I don't have time to measure. And I'm like, well, do you really have time not to? Because what if it's not doing anything and you're spending hours on Twitter or hours on, like, what if it's in your business? Like, don't you want to know, get that time back? So the idea here is let's build a framework with a little bit without a ton of expense, get the best data we absolutely can today, not saying it's perfect, but the best that we can get today. And let's start to make some good decisions based on that.
Hey, Nichole, I have a question for you. Are you on Wi-Fi?
No line.
Pardon me? Are you?
I'm on a hard line.
Okay, so you're directly connected to the internet. No, I can hear you. It just keeps breaking up.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm connected directly.
Okay, good. Okay.
So I'm not sure why.
Okay, I was just checking.
Sorry.
So I want to say that this is the best answer I've ever heard from anyone with respect to how often to measure. And so the gist of it is that the closer you are to the actual work of engagement, the more frequently you measure.
Absolutely.
At the data. Okay. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so you also said, which is a very, very good point, is that before you start the work, there's a lot of good things you said, but one of them is that you sit down and you write down a few bullet points with respect to the strategies that you want to use. and then you start giving them priority based on a number of criteria. And if I remember correctly, there are a number of criteria that you set. One of them was that how much is going to impact your business. So rank them for strength, for impact on company business goals, and then also rank them with respect to how practical it is. Can you explore that a little bit more?
So, it's one of those things where I always working with creative people, and I happen to also be a creative. I'm a juxtaposition in and of myself. We come up with these really great ideas, right? And they could be amazing for the business. Like, there's some companies that if I could place a Super Bowl ad right now, it would greatly impact the revenues of the company. But there's no way the company can afford that, right? So that's the practicality part. Like, based on the resources and the limitations that I have, is this something that's even feasible in the next 12 months? If it is, then great, let's talk some more about it. But if it's just a really cool idea that we can never implement, then let's go ahead and take it off the table now.
Okay. And what about the impact to the company, the outcome? You said you need to rank it with respect to what kind of an impact it can have on the company.
So we look at that in terms of, three things, right? Sales volume, revenue, and cost. So if my strategy is to increase customer retention, for example, which is one of the things that a lot of times we forget to look at when we're marketers, we always think about bringing people in the door. You can increase the revenues of your company significantly if you could just continue to retain your customers and get them to spend more money. So if you're investing in social media time and your strategy is, hey, we're going to improve customer retention by 5%, what is the business impact of that? How much revenue does that translate to if you meet that goal? That may be very different than saying, I'm going to try to generate 100 leads a month. And so you can evaluate them based on the business impact, based on the number, how much revenue it could impact, how many sales units or service hours if you're a service business, and then also the cost piece of it. So is it going to significantly decrease the cost of something else I'm doing? For example, there's still a lot of companies that do direct mail. Direct mail is pretty expensive, right? You have to pay for postage and printing and all of these other things. If I do this social media initiative, can I reach the same number of people with the same or a higher amount of return for less money? And that's a way that you can kind of analyze each different thing against each other to say, okay, what is the true business impact in terms of dollars and cents that this initiative could have?
I see. Okay. And you also said that whenever you try to look at the impact of social media, always have a parallel measurement for a non-social media channel, just in terms of justifying and trying to get it funded.
Yeah, I am not a huge fan of social media metrics. I'm probably the biggest non-social media. I'm not a social media purist by any stretch of the imagination, probably because I started my career in traditional marketing. So with that, I think that one of the challenges is that we try to talk about social media using all of this fancy language that, I like to say it requires a PhD in cool to understand, and you shouldn't need a PhD in cool to understand any kind of business report. So can we start to use common metrics that everyone already knows and the business knows, and we have measures of success already built in for? Can we start to measure social media using those metrics? And even if we're rolling up these cool social media metrics to create that metric, like for example, the cost per lead, if we roll up these social media metrics to create a cost per lead, it's better to use common language than to try to teach people a whole new language just because this thing called social media came around, right?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So to talk in a language that people understand, or the language that we already have. Why invent a whole new set of vocabulary, huh?
Right. And here's the key test for that. If you present a strategy and the measures of success to anyone, whether it's a management team, executive team, or even just an internal team in a smaller company, and someone says, what's a tweet? Or what's a retweet? Or what is that Twitter thing? Then you use social media language. That is the number one test. You've lost at the minute somebody says, what is that Twitter thing again?
Yeah, okay. That's a good thing to listen for. Another amazing chapter in your book was the talk, the whole chapter is about lead generation. And I probably there's not enough conversation about lead generation with social media. And I like to have converse about it a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you point out is that when you create your content strategy, always take a look at where people are in the sales funnel. That is, and you are so right, that is so important because you turn them off. And I actually personally had that experience where I downloaded something, or I was sent by an email that that company was sending me, and I downloaded whatever it was, and immediately I got an email from a salesperson asking me what is my timeline with respect to purchasing whatever tool. And the spreadsheet that they sent me was a Google spreadsheet, which I was really turned off. And then it was just comparing, I cannot remember what tool it was, but it was comparing different tools. So I'm just at a stage where I just downloaded it out of curiosity, and they're contacting me what my timeline is with respect to purchasing.
Right.
Yeah. So would you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I think that the challenge is that with content marketing, we create all this really great content, and sometimes we don't create it with the purchase intent of the person on the other side in mind. And so if I create an ebook or a download that is interesting to my industry, it's something that people in my industry are talking about, or my customers or prospects are talking about, and someone downloads it and I send them a sales offer, there's a disconnect because it was just something that was interesting, right? You just basically gave your email address saying, hey, I'm interested in your content, right? I like your content. That's awesome. You did not say that you were interested in their product or service. And so you also have to have it, and this is where I think in social media sometimes we get lost, is we like to create informational and interesting content. And sometimes we forget that we also need to create what I call decision-making content.
Exactly.
And decision-making content is content that's specifically designed to tell me that someone is in the process of making a decision. If I'm a software company, it may be a guide to purchasing software like this. Like if, I have a chat software company that's a client, and we have a guide, the guide to choosing the right chat software. That's perfect because if I download that, clearly I'm making a decision. That's appropriate for a salesperson to follow up. Not that I would ask what your time frame to purchase is, but I'd probably ask something more relevant. But if I just download something that isn't related to a purchase, then that's where we get lost because we haven't created the decision-making content that allows us to separate those two out.
And then when somebody creates just this general, what kind of content do you suggest to put in the higher level content to help push people down the line? Do you suggest putting
So I suggest giving people more content. So if I subscribed because I liked your content, then it's a good idea to send me more content that I might like, right? And then I like to pair content with offers for both types of content, informational content and decision-making content. So I continually offer that decision-making content along with a piece of informational content. And once you trigger on that decision-making content, then I know that your buying persona or your buying mode has switched, and I need to probably switch the type of marketing that I'm sending you. And the best way to honestly do this is to use like a marketing automation tool that says, here's my decision-making content, here's my informational content. People who are looking at this get this. People who look at this get this track. That's probably the easiest way to make sure that you're separating the two. Okay. At the same time, one thing that I will say and caution you on is that people don't go in the top of the funnel and fall out the bottom, like we like to say. The reason that I like to use the sales funnel, frankly, is because it's a model people understand. It kind of goes with my philosophy of using language people understand. But you know how we are. We bounce all over the place. Like we come in the funnel, we fall out of the funnel, we come back, and our path to purchase isn't linear. So it's just important to keep in mind that there may be multiple touch points. You just want to make sure that you can analyze. And the key is that if someone is interested in buying, have we made it stupid easy for them to actually buy and to say, yes, I'm waving my hand. I want your salesperson to contact me.
Oh, I see. So when you say decision-making content and just a regular content, do you embed the two together or do you send it separately?
So like if I'm doing an email, I would have both offers of both pieces
On
of
the
content
same
in a
email.
single email.
Okay, and then go ahead.
But they're two separate content pieces. So like I'm not doing both in one because then I'm confused too. I separate them out. And then when I communicate about them, if I send an email, for example, I might have an offer for here's this guide and here's this guide, or here's this blog post and here's this guide in one single email.
Okay, so you put them together in one email?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then your email management system can tell you which one they clicked.
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's fantastic. Now, another thing that you mentioned was that, but you made a distinction between the content or the steps that you use for a B2B and a B2C. And you said for a B2B, the decision-making content should be put behind a lead generation form for B2B and an email sign-up form for B2C. Why do you make that distinction?
I make the distinction because in the B2B world, we typically have sales teams, right? The lead generation process is I get a lead and I hand it off to a sales team. And most of the time when I'm handing something off to a sales team, we call it a lead generation form. Like that's the language that we're using. We call it a lead generation form because we collect information. It gets passed into our CRM system a lot of time, our customer relationship management system. And B2C, the purchase tends to happen either in a retail outlet or it's happening online, but there's no people necessarily involved in that purchase decision. That's not a one-on-one communication. And so typically, I'm not filling out anything to contact your sales team or to schedule a webinar or to attend a demo. I'm actually filling out something to get more information from your company, and that typically falls into line with like newsletters or special offers or discounts or deals. And so I just make the distinction so that people don't get confused in terms of the B2B and the B2C purpose of that.
Okay. And with all this discussion, I'm sort of getting the idea that the central role that a good social CRM plays in our ability to be able to drive business value from social media and any other kind of marketing that we're doing. And you talk about ranking leads, and you talk about a number of different lead scoring methods. So you said point system, activity-based system, manual, which you mentioned is risky, and then hybrid. So the point system, would you mind going through them one by one?
Sure. So like a point-based lead scoring model essentially says that I'm going to assign points to somebody when they do something that is of value to the company. So if you fill out a lead generation form, I'm going to put 50 points on your contact record. And then at the end, all of those points get added up. And once you hit a certain score, then I'm going to trigger something. So if you have 1,000 points, I'm going to pass you off to the sales team.
I see.
And activity-based says, it's very similar in terms of the point scoring is usually based on activity, right? I've done something that gives me points. But activity-based doesn't necessarily give you a lead score with a point value. It's more based upon if I have done these 3 things, then I'm going to the sales process or I'm going into that sales funnel because I've visited the website more than 10 times, I've attended a demo, and I've downloaded this guide. That means that this particular guide, not any guide, but this guide, that means I should be sent to the sales team. So one is based on, honestly, I would say that the activity-based scoring is my favorite because I can align specific pieces of content to activity on the back end of that. Whereas the points, I get nervous because somebody can unintentionally get too many points that makes it look like I'm a lead, but maybe I just read your blog every day and I just like your blog. I could get 1,000 points for that if I do that enough times, and it doesn't really indicate that I'm interested in buying.
I see. Okay. And then the hybrid is that you automate it and then you get the salesperson update that the system with their experience?
Yeah, so like the manual process is essentially saying, okay, well, I'm going to have a salesperson look at every lead, and I'm going to every time if I've done a phone call, and I'm expecting my salesperson to update this database, and that's how I'm going to generate a lead score. The hybrid model essentially says, okay, I'm going to use some combination of activity-based or points-based scoring, and then I'm also going to have my salespeople actually validate it. So a hybrid essentially says, okay, well, the lead score just popped up and they had 1,000 points, and it said to push it over to sales. But instead of sales assuming that they are ready, they're actually going to ask some questions to see if they in fact are a qualified lead, and therefore we're going to say yes, this score is accurate. So it's just kind of combining the human and the automated touch.
Okay, all right. Yeah, do you have any recommendations for good social CRM tools?
Well, I would say that I don't believe in social CRM. I know that's probably
Or CRM.
that's probably contradictory slightly, but here's why. I think that CRM is about CRM, and I think that social is about social. My question is, can I pass social data into the existing CRM? Because companies aren't going to switch out their entire customer relationship management systems just because they want to know whether or not somebody tweeted at them. What they want to know is, can I use what I have today, and can I pass in data that says, hey, this person actually came from Twitter, or they converted under organic search? And so I look at social CRM this way. It's about passing data about what's going on in the social campaign or the social activity into someone's existing contact record, whatever that CRM may be. Does that make sense?
Yes, but how would you do that?
So we've built some tools to do that. I think it depends on what kind of tools you have in place. The easiest, I would say, is through Google Analytics. Google Analytics uses cookies, not the chocolate chip variety, but the technical variety, where you can actually store data inside of that cookie, and that can be passed into CRM. So we actually just built a very interesting model with a client where we are tracking what brought them to the website the first time, what they converted under, how many times they visited the website until they converted, where they touched in the social channel, and all of that is being attached to their contact record in Salesforce. The other way to do it is to use a combination of Google Analytics with marketing automation, because marketing automation typically already integrates with the existing CRM. That's why people pick the automation systems they pick. So you can, if you can't get directly from Google Analytics into your CRM, sometimes you can bypass that by passing data into the marketing automation system that then gets pushed over.
Okay, and you name a number of marketing automation system: HubSpot, Eloqua, Peridot, and Marketo?
Yeah, those are the 4 that all integrate basically with Google Analytics so that you can start passing that data.
Okay. Now this brings us to the question that somebody asked, they asked me to ask you, was that they wanted to know, how do you pinpoint the first point of contact? Is it possible?
It is possible, actually. Well, maybe not. Okay, so I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to caveat it. The challenge with social media, if you think about what we share in social media channels, how many times do we actually share something about ourselves, right? So we may send somebody to our website ideally 10 to 20% of the time. Every other time we're sending them to someone else's website. So if I share an article to CNN and you click on it, the big question is, if that's my first touch point, can I track that? The answer is yes, you can track it, but not using existing tools. Like, we built a system to be able to track that and be able to pass that through so that you actually know if you send them to a third-party site whether or not they ever come back. So my caveat is that the one thing you can absolutely track right now is if you send it, if that first touch to your website. So you can do that using custom URL parameters in Google Analytics, which is the process for that is defined in the book. That will tell you the first thing that brought someone to your website. And that tells you for social, but it also tells you, like, if they came through organic search or PPC, all of that data is in Google Analytics already. The question is, can it translate and can it pass over to my CRM or not? The third-party stuff is a little bit more hairy, and we're still kind of working on the models for that. But it's a big open opportunity, honestly. If you think about 80% of our social sharing is going to a third-party website, not our own. As a business owner, I want to know, is that worth my time or not? Are people coming back to my website? And the studies that we've done on that show that it is very, very valuable. And one of them actually said that when we sent them to a third-party site, they visited the website 8 times more than people who came their first visit through a link directly to our site.
So if you send somebody to a third party, let's say CNN,
Mm-hmm.
they are more likely to come back to your website?
In this example, they were. And it was because those articles were really relevant. It wasn't like, I don't know, the latest headline news story. It was something relevant to these people. And so when we tracked it over time, we found that, yeah, it does make sense to share other people's content because look, they come back to the site really often and many times not even through a link that we provided. They searched us in organic search and found us on Google and came back to our website. And being able to know that it's really interesting to kind of model that stuff out.
Yeah, I guess in order to find out how, I guess a big part of it is planning right from the beginning. And what is sort of playing in my mind is that if you're going to do it from the scratch, enter social media space, you might want to choose specific link shorteners just for your content that comes from your website, and then other shorteners for third-party apps. Then would that be a good idea?
I think any shortener is going to allow you to tag, so you can kind of tag in there that, hey, this is going to a third-party site, or this is coming to my own website. So I think you could do it with the same shortener. Okay. The big question comes in, is it going to show up in your Google Analytics dashboard? And that traffic to the third-party site will not show up in your Google Analytics dashboard automatically.
Oh, and you have to set it.
Yeah, you have to build something in between, essentially.
Is this something you guys have built?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Mm-hmm. So does it requires coding, or?
It does. It requires some coding, and you have to kind of build your own URL shortener to be able to do it because you have to circumvent the process.
Oh, okay. So that's an added value of working with
yeah.
company, huh?
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to package it. I'll put it in a shiny box and I'll call it Social Media ROI.
Yeah, I'm sure plenty of people will love that package. Okay, let's see if I already asked this question. There are so many. Okay, your measurement approach for lead generation should be able to accurately identify where a lead. Oh, we already talked about this. Okay, and I asked this question. Oh, the different ways that it's interesting. The way you classify the leads with respect to their potential. Slowest, slow, medium, fast, and closed. Mm-hmm. That's a very interesting discussion on its own. Would you like to add anything?
Sure. I mean, so if you kind of look at the sales funnel, right, and start at the top of the funnel, the idea, that we kind of broach the subject on in the book is that social media is essentially extending your sales funnel. You're getting people earlier in the buying process. And therefore, we need to treat them a little bit differently than we would someone who perhaps is going to buy in the next 2 weeks or the next 2 hours. And so one of the things that we use, and this is a really good example in B2B in particular, mm-hmm. where you do have a salesperson coming in and touching the lead, our question is, okay, well, what is that time frame to buy? When is the right time to ask that question? And are there indicators that we can use based on activity on our website and things like that we can start to anticipate and model people's time frames to buy? And essentially at the slowest level, we say, it's like someone like yourself. You downloaded an ebook. You did not say that you wanted to be contacted by a salesperson. And so mm-hmm. we should send you more content and we should stay top of mind. Mm-hmm. At the slow level, we're essentially saying, okay, well, maybe they've looked at multiple pieces of content, so they're pretty engaged with us. But again, they still haven't said that they're interested in buying, so we're not going to put them in our sales projections, for example. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people do, is that they put all these leads that they generate, these high funnel leads, into their sales projections, and then, people are like, wait, the social media campaign isn't delivering. And it's like, well, those people need to be nurtured through the process. And then essentially every company's timeframes are going to be different. You can do it based on time frame. You can do it based on revenue potential. You can do it a bunch of different ways. I just like to put some kind of structure of, let's agree how we're going to categorize these so we send them the right type of marketing on the back end. Because social media is really good at bringing people into the funnel, but traditional marketing is very good at closing the deal. Yeah. I like to say, social media is like the John Stockton of marketing. Almighty assist.
You also said that when you talk to your management team, make sure right off the bat, tell them that social media leads take a little longer to close, so that you set that expectation that at the end of a quarter they don't say, well, why isn't it paying off?
Well, it's different in purchase intent, right? So I think that we try to lump all leads together, and that's where we get lost. You know, if your company spends a lot of money on pay-per-click advertising, that is
Mm-hmm.
a different purchase intent than somebody who clicked on and downloaded an ebook. If I'm looking on Google and I'm searching for a solution to my problem, I'm looking for an active solution. I am in the buying process. So I'm going to buy at the whatever the rate of your company's conversion rate is, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if I just download an ebook, then I haven't said that I'm interested in your product and service. And so if you put all of those people together, your management team is going to say, wait a second, these social media leads are awful. They don't convert, they aren't performing. But the reality is that we don't
Oh, what happened? She froze. Oh, shoot. What happened? Michael, are you there?
Yeah, we lost her.
She lost her. Oh no.
Maybe because she speaks too fast.
Oh, there
Oh,
she is.
here she is.
management.
Ah,
Know what happened?
Oh, I think it broke up. So keep going. It
Um,
happens. It's technology.
yeah, I know. So essentially, the idea is that if we set the expectation early that social media will generate leads that are earlier in the buying cycle, that we get them before our competition. There's an understanding that we need to do more work to actually convert that into business versus if we say, hey, these leads are equal to something like a PPC lead that has purchase intent already assigned to it.
Hmm. Okay. I got a text message to ask you a question, believe it or
Oh,
not.
hi, Texter.
Ah, people are actually watching, which happens quite a lot with these weekly workshops. And I don't know if I can answer this question or not, but it says, what tool are you using to extract data from social media sites? Do you use a particular tool?
Yeah, so I use Google Analytics. I use the custom URL parameters in order to be able to add campaign tracking. Since then, we actually have like an Excel sheet. We keep track of the status update, the campaign parameters we've added, and the actual URL. So we actually can tell you which status update drove a conversion. We also, so Google Analytics is one. In terms of engagement software, I use Hootsuite, I use Sprout Social. I have a variety of different engagement tools. The thing that I like is that this approach is really tool agnostic. So you can use any engagement tool, and you can still, by using things like Google Analytics, add these custom URL parameters and start actually measuring. The CRM tool that our company uses, we use Infusionsoft, which doesn't have the integration into Google Analytics as much as we like. So we're actually building some hooks in to start passing that data into Infusionsoft.
Well, the person who asked the question is texting, and they say she is awesome. So,
Thank you.
but I knew that already.
You know what? I will tell you, I just found a ridiculous tool in the last week.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's called Lucky Orange.
Lucky
And
orange.
it's like Lucky Orange. It's like $20 a month, and it's a line of code that you put on your website. And we've been testing this to actually supplement Google Analytics data because one of the things we always want to know is what happens when people actually are on our website. It's super inexpensive, and it tells you like scary amounts of data. Like I can see people that are actually on the site at that moment. I can initiate a chat with them. So like if somebody is sitting on a page for 5 minutes, I can actually pop in and say, hey, we're here to help if you need help finding something.
Wow.
I can see heat maps of where people are clicking. I can
What is it called again?
I can heat maps, which
No.
basically
Name of the tool.
it's called Lucky Orange.
Lucky orange. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at
You
it.
can like go back and say, hey, this person actually bought something and like play the session of what they did on your website. I mean, it's like ridiculous scary amounts of data that you can get. Certainly no contact information on a user or anything, but it lets you start to trend out like, okay, well, the reason people aren't converting on this blog page is because they're scrolling down very fast. Maybe we need to put a call to action down here further.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, our weekly show has tools of efficiency, and I think this would be it. That's our tool of efficiency of the week. Lucky. Michael, do you have any questions? He's on the phone. Do you have any questions? I think he needs to. No?
No, not at the moment. It was great.
Okay. Thank you very much. Nichole, I learned so much, and I have one question, is that are you planning on creating training programs for people to actually teach this stuff? And then, you know how people have created training programs around the, what is it called? Get your client? No, I forget.
Like a certification program or something.
Yeah, so you would train people to become trainers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I haven't thought about doing that. I haven't thought about doing that, but maybe I should. That's smart thinking.
Yeah, I would raise my hand and be one of those people that would love to be trained by you, because you know a lot, and you do such a good job of organizing information in a way that makes sense, and it's methodical, and people can follow it step by step. So if you ever develop a program like that, keep me in mind.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We are going to give away a signed copy of your book. So how do you?
I was going to mention that. So I don't know how you're going to select the winner, but I'm super excited. I will write a little personal note in there.
Oh, I want that.
Well,
but I can't.
Send me your mailing address and send the other person, and I will send you both a copy.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So the criteria is this: if anyone, whether watching live, or I have a lot of people that watch the recording. Many people watch the recording. So all you need to do is to +1 and share the video. And I see that on my profile. So if I keep track of it for a whole week, and then by the end of next week, I will randomly draw someone's name and once I choose you, I contact you, give me your address, and I'll send it to Nichole.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Nichole. It was a pleasure to speak to you. And again, if you develop that training program, think of me and other people that are your admirer. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sherry. You have a great day.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to close this episode of Social Media, Open Social Media Initiative. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.